Sri Vishnu Sahasranaama, verse 4. Sarvaha Sharvaha Shivaha Sthanuhu Bhutadihi Nidhiravyayah Sambhavo Bhavano Bhatta Prabhavaha Prabhurishvaraha. This one of the few verses having 12 names. Sarvaha Sharvaha Shivaha Sthanuhu Bhutadihi Nidhiravyayah Sambhavah Bhavanah Bharta Prabhavah Prabhu Ishvaraha. These 12 names are spread out, 6 in each line. Sarvaha means all. He represents all. All are in him. He is in all. Sharvaha, the destroyer, the one who finally absorbs everybody and everything within himself. Shivaha, pure, most auspicious. Sthanuhu, constant, immovable. Achalaha, Bhutadihi, he is the source of all beings. Why beings? Beings and non-beings. Living and non-living. He is the source of everything. Nidhiravyayah, avyayah nidhi. He is imperishable treasure. Sambhavaha, manifestation. He manifests again and again in various forms. Bhavanaha, giver of fruits of action. Sustainer, he sustains the life. He preserves the creation. Prabhavaha, the glorious origin of all beings, the glorious origin of the entire universe. Prabhuhu, the most powerful. Ishvaraha, the supreme, the Lord of all the lords. Sarvaha means one who is all. He is the one cause from whom everything and every being has come forth. This can be understood by taking example of the mighty ocean. All the waves, whether big or small, maybe a small wave hitting the shore or a mighty tsunami, all this arise from the same ocean and ultimately they all fall back into the same ocean. Therefore, we can consider the ocean is essence of all waves. There is no wave without the supporting ocean. So is the Paramatma. He is there in every being. Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita praises the Lord in verse 40. He says, Namaha Purastad Atha Prushtatahate Namaha Purastadata Prushtatasthe Namah Astute Sarvata Eva Sarva Ananta Viryam Amita Vikramam Tvam Sarvam Samapnoshi Tataha Asi Sarvaha. Arjuna is telling, addressing the Supreme as Ananta Viryaha, one infinite in power. He says, I would like to salute to you from before and from behind, from all the sides, because there is no beginning, there is no end, though no middle. There is no front, no back. Arjuna is totally perplexed. He says, I will salute you from all the directions because I don't know where is your beginning, where is your end. He says, that's why he calls the Supreme as Sarvaha, O all. Indeed, salutations to you from all the sides. Then he addresses the Supreme as Amita Vikramaha, O one infinite in strength. He concludes, you complete all, and therefore you are the all. Sarvam samapnoshi. You complete everything. Tataha, therefore, Asi sarvaha. Therefore, you are all. Namaha purastadata prushtataste. Namostute sarvata eva sarva. Ananta viryamita vikramastvam. Sarvam samapnoshi tatosi sarvaha. The Supreme is all in all. He absorbs all those who seek refuge. In this sense, we can call him the destroyer, Sharvaha. Sharvaha means the destroyer. Literally, it means destroyer, but actually, it connotes the most auspicious one, the one who destroys everything. Shrunati in Pralaya is called Sharvaha. At the same time, he is extremely auspicious to those who have a vision of him and who meditate upon him, and more importantly, those who totally surrender to him and his will. Now, the auspiciousness aspect of Shiva can be understood very easily. But Shiva is found in the graveyard. He covers himself with the ashes of the funeral pyre. He is wearing a mala of skulls. Everything around him seems to be inauspicious, amangala. But Lord Shiva is the most auspicious. He is the Mangala Murti, the Sarvamangala, the Supreme Shakti is always with him. Why does the Sarvamangala stay with Shiva? Because she knows Shiva is among the inauspicious things, but he himself represents the most auspicious. He is Mangala Karta, Amangala Harta. He is not a Mangala. So, Sharvaha, destroyer. In this sense, they use the word destroyer. That is why this is made very clear by the very next name, Shivaha, means auspicious. Destroyer does not imply any inauspiciousness. Let us see in the next name, Shivaha. Shivaha means pure, most auspicious. Shivaha, the Supreme, is eternally pure. He may stay among objects and things and places which we may consider in our ignorance as inauspicious. But he is not contaminated with any imperfections of rajas or tamas. What is tamas? Tamas is non-apprehension of reality, and this leads to rajas, which is misapprehension of the reality. Whereas the Supreme, called by whatever name, Vishnu, Shiva, whatever name, he is the absolute reality. So Supreme is glorified as Shaswatam, Shivam, Achyutam. Shaswatam is imperishable, Shivam is auspicious, Achyutam, one who never falls from his exalted state. He is reality himself, reality which is the Brahman. So the Upanishad says, Sa Brahma, Sa Shiva, Sa Harihi, Sa Indraha, Sa Aksharaha, Paramaswarat. The primeval Paramatma is Brahma, the Shiva, the Vishnu, the Indra, the imperishable, the immovable, the supreme effulgence. And Mahavishnu is the original cause for all creation. So proclaim the Upanishads. From this, it is very clear that there is no difference between Vishnu and Shiva. Mahavishnu, the supreme, beyond all the gunas, transcending all the gunas, in the form of Shiva, is immovable, means sthanuhu, constant. Sthanuhu, constant. The word sthanuhu generally denotes a pillar which is permanent, immovable, and fixed. Similarly, Mahavishnu, denoting Brahman, is stable, constant, and motionless. And this is brought out again in Bhagavad Gita, verse 24 of chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga. Achedyoyam adahyoyam akledyah ashoshyah evacha nityah sarvagatah sthanuhu achalah ayam sanatanaha. The self cannot be cut. The self cannot be burned. It cannot be wetted or it cannot even be dried. The self is eternal, all pervasive, stable, constant, immovable, immutable, and ancient. All these attributes are brought out beautifully in Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna. The Supreme is said to be immovable. Then how does it he appear? How does he appear as movable in the five great elements, the Panchabhutas, Panchamahabhutas? It is so because he is the source of beings. Bhuta Adihi. Bhuta Adihi. Bhutadihi means source of beings. Now, the Supreme is the very cause for the five great elements, Pancha Mahabhutas, namely space, Akasha, air, Vayu, fire, Agni, water, Jala, Jalam, or Apaha, and earth, that is Bhumi. The first to arise from the Supreme was the space, because Supreme is most subtle, subtle beyond subtleness. From him, what first emerges is relatively of the five elements, which is most subtle, is the space. From this subtle space emerged air. From air, that is Vayu, emerged fire. And from fire emerged water, and finally from water emerged the earth. Space is the most subtle of the five elements, and earth is the most gross among these five elements. Is a progressive order. Most subtle is space, slightly gross is air, more gross than air is fire, more gross than fire, air, and space is water, and compared to all these four, the grossest element is the earth. Now, human bodies, for that matter, any living body emerges from these five elements, and finally, after death, they return back to these five elements only. So, all these five great elements which are emerged from the Supreme are always striving to return and merge back into the same Supreme. That is why he is called Bhutadihi. He is the source of beings. He is also the final resting place of all the beings. The source of beings is himself, the imperishable treasure. Nidhihi avyayaha. Avyayaha nidhihi. Called Nidhiravyayaha. Nidhi means that in which all precious things are stored and preserved secretly. Now, what happens to all the beings at the time of Pralaya? They don't vanish into nothingness. They are stored safely in the Paramatma. And Paramatma is the imperishable treasure. He preserves all the beings, including all the vasanas. And at the time of the next cosmic cycle creation, they re-emerge. And originally, as beings, they were manifest. They become unmanifest during Pralaya, that is, under safe custody of the Supreme. And again, on next round of creation, they again emerge back into manifestation. So in between, he is the Nidhiravyayaha. He keeps us safely during the long period of Pralaya. He is a substratum. He is like container for the entire universe. So during what happens is, during the great dissolution, what called pralaya. Laya is dissolution. Pralaya is great dissolution. We should not use the word destruction. It is always dissolution. During the great dissolution, all beings get merged into him temporarily and emerge or re-awaken or re-manifest during the next creation, that is in the beginning of the next cosmic cycle. Avyaya means unchangeable, imperishable. The Mahavishnu is like an imperishable treasure for all the beings. The imperishable Supreme incarnates, that is manifests of his own free will. So it's called Sambhavaha. Sambhavaha is manifestation. One who incarnates of his own free will for protection of the virtuous, subduing of the evildoers, and together for upholding dharma. This is proclaimed in perhaps the most famous verse of Bhagavad Gita, verse 8, chapter 4. Paritrāṇāya sadhūnām vināṣāya ca duṣkrutām dharma samsthapanārthāya sambhavami yuge yuge. I think this was in the title song of the Mahabharata serial. Paritrāṇāya sadhūnām, that is for protection of the virtuous, the dharmic persons, and vinashaya cha dushkrutam, for destruction of the wicked, the unrighteous, evil persons who are trying to harass the virtuous beings. And in the process, dharma samsthapanarthaya, for establishment or for re-establishment of dharma. Lord says, I am born from age to age. Sambhavami yuge yuge. I am born from age after age. Age to age I am born. Paritrāṇāya sadhūnām vināṣāya ca duṣkrutāṃ dharma samsthapanārthāya sambhavami yuge yuge. Harivamsha says, I am Narayana, the source from which all creatures and all things spring forth. Aham Narayano Brahma Sambhavaha Sarvadehinam Sarvabhutodbhavakaraha. The Supreme is also the giver of fruits of action. Bhavanaha. Bhavanaha means giver of fruits of action. For all the joys and sorrows which we get are like fruits for our good and bad actions which have been done maybe in the same life or maybe in the earlier lives. We do not know. But the Supreme keeps tracks of everything and meticulously, very appropriately, very correctly gives awards the fruits thereof, that is the joys and sorrows for the good and bad actions. Hence, Lord Krishna says we should focus only on performing our duties, our actions, and we should try to perform our duties to the best of our ability, given the resources, given the opportunities which we come across, and we should use our resources, God-given resources, for the benefit of the humanity and not for any particular narrow interest. And do this without worrying about the results. The awarding of the results is in the domain of the Supreme. It is not with our hands. You better leave it to Him. Let the Supreme will give to us whatever we deserve, not what we desire. Whatever we deserve as per actions will be given now or later at the appropriate time by the Supreme. So it says, Karmani eva adhikaraha te. Te means you. Te karmani eva adhikaraha. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Never for the fruits thereof. You have a right to action only, never to the fruits thereof. But same time, let not the fruit of action be the motive. Ma karma palaha hetuhu bhuhu. Let it not. Let not the fruit of action. That means don't worry about what is going to be the result, whether this is going to succeed or not. What am I going to get out of it? No, don't worry about that. That part you leave it to Supreme. You do your job correctly and leave it to Him. But at the same time, because there is no direct relation between the action and the results at your level, it does not mean that you forego action. That means you become attached to inaction. Never, never do that mistake. So that warning also is contained in this beautiful verse. Mate sangaha, mate sangaha, sangaha astu akarmani. Akarmani means inaction. Don't be attached to inaction. That means you do your job sincerely without worrying about the results. Results will be given to you in due course by the Supreme. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफल हेतुर्भुः मा ते संगोस्त्वकर्मणि. The Supreme is the sustainer of all beings. Bharta, sustainer. Lord Krishna proclaims in Vibhuti Yoga in verse 8, that is chapter 10. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha. I am the origin of all. Mattaha sarvam pravartate. From me everything evolves. Iti matva, understanding this. Bhajante ma bhudaha. The wise, understanding this, they worship me. How? Bhava samanvitaha. Fully endowed with devotion. Krishna is making two statements. I am the origin of all, and from me everything evolves. Then he is declaring that the wise, Buddha, iti matva, understanding thus, bhajante mam bhava samanvitaha. They worship me endowed with devotion. There is one more verse, it clarifies, verse 18 of chapter 9. Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga Gatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi Nivasaka Sharanam Sruhut Prabhavaha Pralayaka Sthanam Nidhanam Bijam Avyayam Avyaya Bijam. Means I am the goal, Gati, I am the supporter, Bharta, I am the Lord, Prabhu, I am the witness, Sakshi, I am the abode, Nivasa, I am the shelter, Sharanam, I am your friend, Surut, I am the origin, I am the dissolution, I am the destruction. He represents all the three, origin, dissolution, and substratum. That is Prabhavaha, Pralayaha, Sthanam. Sthanam denotes sustenance. And he says, I am the treasure house and also the imperishable seed. Bijamavyayam, one of the most meaningful verses of Bhagavad Gita. Gatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi Nivasaka Sharanam Sruhut Prabhavaha Pralayaka Sthanam Nidhanam Bijamavyayam. Such a glorious being is also the glorious origin of all the beings. Prabhavaha. Prabhavaha means the glorious origin, the one who is the very womb of creation, from which emerge the five great elements, and from them, from these elements, emerge all the animate and inanimate objects. It is the source from which even the concept of space and time have emerged. So that is why we say the Supreme is transcending space and time. He cannot be constrained or thought to be limited by space and time. So one who is not constrained by time cannot have a beginning, cannot have an end. Because both beginning and end and middle, they are part of time. They are the concepts of time. And the concept of time itself has come from the Supreme. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha. O Arjuna, my birth and action are divine. Janma cha karma me. That means me janma, me karma divyam. Both my birth and action are divine. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha. One who knows this in true light, in reality. What happens is, tyaktva deham, on abandoning the body, that is on death, punarjanma naiti, he is not born again. What happens to him? Mam eti saha, he comes to me, Arjuna, O Arjuna, my birth and action are divine. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma na eti mam eti sorjuna. The glorious origin of all beings is the most powerful, the Almighty Lord, Prabhu. Most powerful, the Almighty Lord. He has the supreme freedom. We call him Prabhu because he is not bound by anything. He has supreme freedom. He has freedom to do anything or not to do anything or to do that particular thing in a different way. Kartum, akartum, anyatha kartum. To do or not to do or to do differently anything. He has that freedom. So he is the Lord. In his incarnations, like that of Krishna, he may appear like an ordinary human being, but he retains in full his capacity to bestow liberation also. He gave liberation to Shishupala. He gave liberation to all the people. He also gave liberation to a great man like Bhishma. The most powerful Almighty Lord is therefore supreme. Ishvaraha. Ishvaraha means supreme. Ishte iti Ishvaraha. One who can perform any work without anyone's assistance. That is the definition of Ishvara. One who can perform anything, any work without anybody's assistance is Ishvaraha. Esa Sarveshwaraha. Veda declares he is the supreme of all. Esha Sarvaha Ishvaraha. Esha Sarveshwaraha. So he is called Nirvikalpa, Niranjana, one who presides over every activity, Ishvaraha. With this, we come to a conclusion of this very great verse with 12 names. Okay. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amrutangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.